And welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus on this Monday, October 20th. It's a windy one out there, and it's kind of chilly as well. Temperatures are only in the 40s. We have some light rain up and down the valley from north to south, moving slowly eastward. That should be out of the valley area here and pressing into Lakes Country within the next hour or so. I'm Chief Meteorologist Wysocki, along with our Ag Director, Bridgette Readel. A little bit wet out there today, Bridgette, but not too bad. Hey, we're not seeing any snow yet, which we could easily have this time of the year.
We would prefer that, and I think that especially as you get into the Devil's Lake region right now, those folks would like it to stop raining. They haven't been able to combine in a week.
Yeah, they were getting the majority of the rain this morning. And I guess the good news is, if there's any, always try and find the bright spot. And a lot of wind out to the west of the valley, so that should start to dry things out. In fact, high wind warnings out in the far western part of the state. Wind advisories stretch as far east as Jamestown now. So if you're traveling west, be aware of that, especially if you've got a high-profile vehicle. You're going to run into wind gusts out of the northwest at about 40 to 55 miles an hour. So a windy day. That will continue into tonight, too. Temperatures in the 40s today. We're really not going to move a whole lot. Topping out right around 50, and then those showers will exit the area. We'll have a dry evening, and then more showers come in overnight tonight. Those will be light, and we'll drop down to a low right around 40. And then Tuesday, not much better. A lot of clouds, quite a bit of wind out of the northwest, 20 to 35, and gusting at 40. And highs in the mid-40s tomorrow. It's going to feel raw tomorrow. But then we dry things out Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday with gradual warming. Low 50s on Wednesday, warming up into the low 60s by the time we start the weekend. So we'll start on a pretty dry stretch, and that will last through Saturday for sure. Might last into Sunday, but we're keeping an eye on a storm system late Sunday into Monday that could affect our area. And I've had a lot of people ask, hey, what's the deal with this, this mild weather to start off the month of October? We do see changes coming as we head towards the end of the month. We're starting to see signs of what we call stratospheric warming in the upper levels of the atmosphere in the northern hemisphere. And typically when that occurs, that's when the cold air starts to dive south out of Canada. And we're starting to see signs of that at the end of the month. So enjoy later this week with the mild weather, because it looks like that is short-lived as we're going to start seeing a bigger pattern change. At least that's the way it looks now as we head towards the end of the month.
Sounds like a regular fall in North Dakota.
Really does, yeah. I mean, we've been lucky so far. A little wetter than average, obviously, and, driving south to Nebraska this weekend, seeing a lot of beet trucks, seeing a lot of corn harvested. Still a lot of corn left, though. The further south we go into Iowa and Nebraska, too. They haven't really, not a whole lot of corn being pulled out of the fields just yet.
I would say that it's coming along pretty well. I have not seen a estimate on harvested acres, at least on a by state basis as of yet. Part of that is, with the government shutdown right now, we're not doing as many cropping surveys as we normally would.
Good point.
If I were to estimate, though, I think things are moving pretty quickly. In fact, I can probably drop a message to one of our listeners, Chad, and get an update as where American Crystal stands with harvest. Most recently, I think that they update that on Fridays, and I can get a little bit clearer picture for them. When we've got this rain and we have trucks that have been coming out of fields where there's soil and mud on the roads, remember how slippery that can get. There was a sugar beet truck that turned over this morning close to Wahpeton, and also near south of Hillsboro, there was a truck that the tailgate fell out of the back and the sugar beets came rolling out of that truck.
Oh.
So don't tailgate the trucks, right? Because accidents can happen. And it's not as though someone accidentally hit a button. It just happens. Then additionally, when we can see that happen in any grain trailer. It was probably about 4 or 5 years ago. I remember getting a call on my way home saying that, hey, be really careful at the intersection on the highways south of town, because the traps had fallen out of a soybean trailer. So it's got 2 dumps on it. It's got two live traps, and the traps fell out and it dropped a whole load of soybeans on that intersection. little tiny round balls like that, it's kind of like driving on ice. So we had to get a county grader to come out, or at least a local road grader, and clean that road off before people slid in the ditch. So be careful. Harvest things happen.
Yeah, no doubt. And like you said, the rain doesn't help. And yeah, it was it Highway 81 last week where we had a message from one of our listeners that Holland Beats. It was so muddy that it was like driving on ice on Highway 81.
It
So
can be.
yeah, with this rain and the mud, you got to be careful, no doubt.
And farmers clean off those roads. So, but sometimes they can't get there quite as fast as you are getting there. So be cautious. And remember that when things get really dirty in farming, and they do, you can take those things to Coral Laundromat. They are our studio sponsor. They are over at 3620 Veterans Boulevard, and they would be happy to take care of whatever you've got going on, from sporting equipment. I mean, it is fall for football. We've got pads that need to be washed. Maybe you're doing some cleaning at the cabin and you need to take in pillows, comforters, or you're getting ready for changeover from your harvest crew and you need to clean out some living quarters. Take those things over. You can either self wash or you can drop them off and pick up later. So when we've been talking about weather, Dean, there's an article that I read this morning talking about is La Nina coming and what could that do for our winter weather? And I know you've been reading it too.
Mm-hmm.
Any comments on that?
Well, I mean, it's a weak La Nina, so we're not worried too much about it. And typically, and not all the time, but about 75% of the time, that usually leads, if it's a stronger La Nina, it usually leads to a colder than normal winter. And snowfall wise, at or a little bit above normal for our area, for the Northern Plains. So we'll see how that pans out. And again, that's just one piece of what we call the atmospheric puzzle, so if we know that there's going to be a weak La Nina, then, we're going to be favoring towards colder than normal temperatures, depending on how strong it gets. If it continues to be a rather weak La Nina, it won't have as much influence on it. Now, keep in mind, okay, so we've already started the new LRC cycle. We're about 2 weeks into it. And what have we seen? We've seen above normal temperatures, a few dips and a few storms, but overall above normal temperatures. So let's see how this shakes out. But one thing that we could conclude from this, and we'll see how the rest of the cycle pans out, is the start of each cycle. Overall, we should have a little bit above normal, but then again, we probably have another 4 weeks left in this, and we see big changes coming around the corner. So La Nina is only a small piece of what is expected to happen for this upcoming winter. But again, if you're a cold weather fan or a snow lover, you probably want a little stronger La Nina to have a bigger influence on what our winter weather is going to shape up to be. So that was a long-winded answer.
That's okay, because I think I heard everybody with snowmobiles going, did he just say more snow? He said more snow. That's their plan.
Let's hope so. We've had a couple of, really I'll call them snow-free winters for up here. And, I'm sure there's a lot of people that want that snow. And like you said, especially the snowmobilers.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of folks that'll be waging their opinions when it comes to whatever might be happening with the weather as the fall rolls on. And don't forget that if you have those questions about weather, you can send us emails. Dean takes them, weather@flagfamily.com. Mine is ag@flagfamily.com. And you can always call in. The JLA Insurance phone line is 701-293-9000. You might be following us today on our social media, which is indeed Facebook and YouTube, WDAY Weather and Ag in Focus, or maybe you're watching on Acres TV. This app provides a ton of ag content for you to follow up on. And if you have someone in your life who could possibly be one of our ag interns, you can be an assistant ag director for a day for me, you make sure to reach out to that email address, ag@flagfamily.com. Be happy to send you an application. That program is sponsored by the Cass County Farm Bureau. They do an outstanding job on especially their pillar of ag education in this region in so many ways, whether it's with scholarships, sponsoring 4-H, and much, much more. In fact, one of those 4-H things that they have been part of, well, most recently, we had the National 4-H Week. That was happening the week of October 6th through the 11th. Now, little guess, tell me what you think. How many 4-H alumni do you think there are? I mean, this is a pretty big number when you look at the global aspect of it. Any idea how many 4-H alumni you think are out there?
Oh boy, globally you said?
Yeah.
Oh, I couldn't even. I have no clue. I couldn't even venture a guess.
The number I see on their website is roughly 35 million alumni
Woo!
have been a part of 4-H over the decades.
Wow.
There are 3,500 educators, a half million volunteers, and students have the opportunity to do everything that could be agriculturally related into robotics and engineering. STEM is certainly well focused on with 4-H. And at the end of this month, we tag in with the FFA. Their national convention is October 29th through November 1st. Students will be headed to Indianapolis, Indiana. They have leadership sessions to attend, national competitions. They will be doing philanthropy projects around Indianapolis and a chance to network with each other while attending a career fair that not only highlights what they can do after they graduate, but many, many colleges, particularly land grant universities, are there looking for students who might want to attend. So it's a big month for youth, and we're happy to be a part of that and sponsor as much as we can. Well, speaking of things that are going on in the region, well, we're always talking about farming. But what if I want to take you outside our region today? I'll do that with our guest today. Her name is Michelle Martin. She is the founder and publisher for the Ag Mag. She's down in the McAllen, Texas area. We want to find out about her magazine, TV, and all the things that happen in South Texas this time of the year and others when we return from the American Ag Network's Livestock Report. So glad to have you joining us here today. And a reminder that it is Cybersecurity Month. How careful is your cybersecurity? Well, in order to find out, you might want to check on Tech Support Farm's Fence Check. That Fence Check assessment is on their website, and you can find that at techsupportfarm.com. For questions today, again, you can call us on the JLA Insurance phone line, 701-293-9000. And keep that number in mind because on November 5th is our first ever WDAY Radio Farm Show. We're going to be doing that all day long, programming on WDAY for the entire day. Will all be agriculture, whether it's agronomy to livestock and so much more. And you can tune in, you can watch us as we live stream, and you can do those phone calls once again on the JLA Insurance phone line of 701-293-9000. Today's guest is joining us from South Texas. That's Michelle Martin. She's the Ag magazine of that region. And okay, Michelle, what's going on in Texas this time of year? I mean, we're trying to harvest. You guys are probably harvesting, planting, and everything in between.
Yes, well, Texas is really big. So what part of Texas are we talking about? But where I live, the most southern tip of Texas, I mean, I live so close to Mexico, I could walk over. But we have right now is vegetable season and citrus season. Citrus season just kicked off, and vegetable season is well underway, and that'll go all the way to March.
So I told someone this morning that when you say vegetables, that you're kind of a big dill because even dill is grown in your neighborhood. And you've got a hand in that as well.
Yes, that is right. Well, with what I do with my magazine and my TV show, pretty much I decided to challenge myself because I'm very ADHD. And so I asked my husband, I said, will you just let me farm a couple acres to see if I can do it? I've learned a lot, through all my travels. Let's just try it out. And it did not end well for me.
Oh no.
Well, we got to hear the rest of that story.
Well, when I said I wanted to farm alone, my husband agreed to it, but he said, you're going to have supervision. And I said, well, I hope it's not you because we'll just end up fighting the whole time. So one of my good friends, Felix, he helped us out, but my dill survived 2 freezes, and we don't freeze down here in South Texas. And the one year I farmed, we did. It survived, and then water ended up taking it out. We got over 18 inches in less than 24 hours.
Ooh.
So the one thing we needed most, water, is the one thing that took out my dill.
Okay, so the Ag Mag. And for folks that are curious, they can certainly find your website and take a look at issues, etc. What sparked starting a magazine from scratch?
Well, that's a great question, and people ask me that all the time. I was working at a job that pretty much I had done all I could do as far as marketing efforts were concerned at the time. And I just prayed to the big man upstairs and said, God, get me out of here. And that's kind of when the idea for the magazine started. And I made a mock magazine, called my graphic designer from a previous job and said, hey, you want to jump aboard? And that's kind of how it got started. My husband drove me around to local agricultural businesses here in the Valley, and I had 4 people who said they would invest in me. And by the second one, I was up to, I think, 50 advertisers by the second edition.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
and
it was
are you primarily focusing on agronomy or livestock, or what constitutes every issue, and where do you get all the stories and writers?
Oh, well, it has a little bit of everything from farming to ranching to the 4-H, FFA, to a little bit of, what's going on with our farm bill and all that good stuff. And really, a lot of times people will just ask me if they can write for me. Other times, I just, through networking, really, everywhere on my travels, or I'll go to a local field day, and it just kind of falls into place from there. I don't really have a set theme per magazine. Each magazine is a hodgepodge of everything.
Is it? Oh, go ahead, Dean. That looked like you were going to ask a question.
That's
there.
okay. So, Michelle, is there, when you're In your crops, is most of the water? Do you rely on irrigation or do you rely on because on just natural rainfall? Because there's many times where southern Texas there you could be in some pretty severe drought, and if you do rely on irrigation, what percentage of farmers down there rely on irrigation from the Rio Grande?
I mean, I can't give you an exact percentage per se, but I can tell you we do have irrigation and then we also have non-irrigated farmers. But if you are a vegetable farmer or a citrus farmer, you are 100% an irrigated farmer. The vegetables require so much water. And a lot of our irrigation water comes from actually, almost all of it comes from the Rio Grande River. And that's a huge topic in our area because I'm going to say, we're not going to get deep into this for time's sake, but Mexico kind of controls our flow of our irrigation water from the Rio Grande River. And that comes from the Water Treaty of 1944. And so for the longest time, Mexico was refusing to give us the water that we were owed. Here recently, they have allowed us to have some, but it's still not enough. So we really do rely on good old Mother Nature for our water. But you get into closer to the coast, and there's a lot more dry land farmers over there versus irrigated, and that's more for your row crop.
Hmm. So one of the things that I'm curious about is you mentioned the citrus crop, and I know that you spend a lot of time around farmers in that region. Have folks there been talking about citrus greening the same way they do in Florida, where they have the concerns about their crop isn't, is really on its decline because of that particular disease and problem?
100%. And we also have what is called the Mexican fruit fly, which is also another big topic in our area. And then you add water on top of that because citrus needs a lot. But something interesting about our area is we used to have a lot of independent citrus growers and wonderful citrus, which I'm sure you've seen like those halos in the grocery store.
Yeah.
They also own Fiji water or the wonderful pistachios. They came into our area and primarily bought out almost all the independent citrus growers. And so we have one left who didn't really want to participate. And so he's the only independent citrus grower. So you're talking about greening and all these great things, this company is so well versed in citrus because they do own, California, parts of California citrus here, and then Florida. And so they get to deal with that too. But it is an issue
Absolutely.
down here. It is an issue.
Pretty much pretty much every agricultural concern that we have affects Texas, and especially South Texas, because of the longevity of your growing season. Many more questions to come, Michelle. We want to continue this conversation after we go through our news break, but when we return, again,
Okay.
folks can call with their questions on the JLA Insurance phone line, 701-293-9000, and we'll continue our discussion with Michelle Martin from South Texas with the Ag Mag. Be back. Thanks to those folks who were a huge part of our Here We Grow project this year. One of them was indeed ND Estate Services with Mark Wagner. Mark did an outstanding job and continues to work for his clients to make sure that they avoid probate and that the important things like protecting guardianship and saving on taxes can be taken care of. If you need to talk to Mark, you can reach him at ndestateservices.com. And Thor Buildings. I had a chance to tour a Thor building site for a new farm shop near Uland, Minnesota. That video is up on our website. You can find it on WDAY, Weather and Ag in Focus, our Facebook page, and other places. And it's pretty cool to see the upgrades that are made in farm shops today, especially with the size of equipment we're working with. Today we are joined by Michelle Martin. She is in South Texas. She publishes the Ag magazine for South Texas and also does a TV show. So where did you go from magazine to a TV show? And especially someone doing this like on your own, right? This isn't a big communications company putting it together.
No, it's not. I wish. I can't afford that. Yeah, so like I said, I am ADHD. And so by about the 6th year of the magazine, I realized it was kind of running itself. And I kind of wanted to, I guess I was getting a little bored. And so I decided, I said, hey, social media is really picking up at this time. Back in the day, they didn't have reels and all this good stuff. But I said, there is definitely an opportunity. And so my husband kind of encouraged me to start the social media. And then that's where the show came into play. I said, let's put a visual to the story I'm telling in the magazine. And so I contacted the local news station I used to work at as a producer back in the day. And they said, yeah, we'll air your show for you. And that's kind of where it started. But
a pretty
it
good
wasn't
start.
all roses. Yeah. Yeah, it was a good start for about a month. And then that's when I started to learn the ins and outs. And yeah, it was not smooth sailing.
And Michelle, do you focus your magazine, your articles just on the Rio Grande area, or do you do any traveling throughout the U.S.?
Well, with the show, I travel. With the magazine, it is now nationwide. It does get distributed primarily through email across the United States. But it originally was started as a publication for South Texas. And then once the show and social media started is when it kind of started growing and growing.
Gotcha. And Michelle, we have a listener question emailed into us asking about, you were talking about this earlier about Mexico kind of choking off some of the water, if you will. And the question from the listener was, how can Mexico control the flow of water when the Rio Grande flows from north to south? How is Mexico controlling part of that?
Well, that's because of the Treaty of 1944. And so basically the Rio Grande, it starts up in Colorado and works its way down. And what happened is that the flow between the dams, Mexico is allocated to give us X amount of square acre foot of water per year. And they weren't doing that. Instead, and I don't really want to get too deep into this, but what they do is they were redirecting the water to go into parts of Mexico, which was the water that was owed to us. And so they kind of diverted it away. But it all goes back to the treaty. And if anyone's interested, they can look up that treaty. And it is incredibly poorly written. And there's so many ways to get around and loopholes.
So there's more than just a little bit of problem when it comes to water and so forth in Texas. One of the other things, talk about your cotton market, if you could, please, because Texas was always known as the king of cotton, but that's maybe changed over a little bit in the last few years as well. What's replaced that crop for a lot of farmers?
Yeah, so we down here where I live well, first, before I answer your question, going back to the water treaty, I'm working on a documentary about that. But if they want to go to my social media, I do have clips for the people who are listening that they can actually watch, and it would answer that. But going back to cotton now, we used to, in the Rio Grande Valley, be known as having the first bale of cotton every year. In fact, we have several charity, organizations that celebrate that. Now, we usually plant, I want to say on average, 164,000 acres of cotton a year is how much is planted. Harvested, you're probably looking at 130, 140. I might be off just a little bit. This year, it was down to 20,000 harvested, I believe, if
Whoa.
not even lower. Yeah, and I think again, it primarily resorts back to water, not only for the irrigated cotton farmers, but also for the non-irrigated. And obviously, the markets down here aren't as, and the markets in general aren't the
Mhm.
best. And so I think that that kind of shied away
I
this
really
year.
like being able to ask questions about crops in different areas and from a different geographic region than what we see. So, I mean, Michelle, you live down there. Your husband works in ag as well. You are a wealth of knowledge about all the things that are happening in your state. When it comes to livestock, y'all are, like you said, you could walk across the border from where you live. And have have you been talking with ranchers about the potential of the New World screwworm affecting their herds? What are they saying?
I haven't really done any interviews on that here per se because I've been busy traveling. So my time at home here
Sure.
lately seems to be very limited. But from what I've heard, I know that I saw Sid Miller actually this last weekend when I was speaking at the Ag Women Connect in Lubbock, and he's made it his way down here. And the farmers and ranchers down in this area, I mean, it's very scary because we are so close to Mexico. Where especially where I'm at, I'm about 7 to 10 miles from the Mexican border, but we have several ports of entry. And with everything going on in the world, it's very hard to kind of monitor, what's coming over and what's not. And so it's definitely a fear down here. We've had a couple luncheons. I know the extension agents are putting on, informational meetings just to help these farmers and ranchers out. So even though the cattle market seems to be great right now, everyone is kind of holding on to what they have and being extra cautious when it comes to this New World screwworm.
I tell you what, nobody knows how to be more cautious in a marketplace than cattle folks, because they know that something as simple as mad cow disease in Canada at Christmas or Oprah Winfrey opening her mouth can crash their market. These are people who plan
Yeah.
that disaster can happen and they do not overextend themselves. So when you said they're being cautious and optimistic, even in an upside market, they really are. That's what they do.
That's all you can do. And, you bring up such a good point, Bridget, because that's kind of what fuels my fire to do what I do. With the show, I primarily, not all the time, but about 80% of the time, I am self funded. But it's not for me so much as, just having something to post on social media. For me, there's so much misconception out there. And like you said, one wrong clip from someone who is very well known can destroy our livelihoods. And so my goal is to go out there, go to the source, and show the truth that way, not just from something I heard on the internet, if that makes sense. And so
Yes.
Oprah Winfrey can do her thing, but I'll correct her my way.
Michelle, did you grow up farming as well?
I did not grow up with an ag background. In fact, my husband did, but I did not. And so I think that that brings quite a unique perspective when I am trying to close the gap between the consumer and the grower or rancher or whatever it may be, because I can have the mentality of someone who's not involved in agriculture. But now, since I'm so heavily embedded into it, I can think the way a rancher or farmer does, not exactly like they think, but you get what I'm trying to say. So I can be that
Yeah,
middleman that can understand both perspectives and communicate it in a clear and effective way for both parties. So
that's fantastic. So I mean, I know Michelle and I follow her, and we've done some things together in person when we've been at events. But for those who don't necessarily know Michelle, where can they go find you? First of all, you're on Acres TV, just like we are. So that's maybe the first stop for folks, right?
my favorite channel or streaming, I should say my favorite streaming is there's so much out there, but yes, they can find me on Instagram, agmag_stx. which stands for South Texas. People think it's sticks because I'm small and skinny. And I was like, no, it's South Texas. But same thing for Facebook. They can type in Michelle Martin or agmag_STX. Same for YouTube. And then actually on Acres, it's Ag on Wheels because that is the name of my show, is Ag on Wheels.
That helps tremendously. And again, for folks to watch both of us and all the things that we do on Acres TV would be fabulous. So, Michelle, thanks for taking some time today. I know that it hasn't been a perfect day at your house. I hope everybody feels better and you guys get the chance to nap after this.
My life is chaotic. I love it. I'd have it no other way. I just roll with it. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Michelle, for joining us. And when we come back, we'll recap our chilly-looking forecast for the next couple of days, and we could have our first widespread frost before the week is done. We'll detail that and more when we come back. And welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus, 1:51 in the afternoon on this Monday, October 20th. We're looking at showers now, just pulling east of the valley now, raining steadily from northwest Minnesota down through, let's say, Ulen and just north of Fergus. Areas, let's say, on a line from Perham to Fergus, you're really not going to see much at all out of this. But everybody else seeing at least some type of rain. That will start to end here over the next hour or so. Then we'll see a break in the action. And then as we head into tonight, we'll see dry conditions through the evening. But after midnight, we'll start to see a few more showers wrap in on the backside of this area of low pressure. Not a lot overnight. And temperatures dropping down to about 40 tonight. And then we were talking earlier about the chance of widespread frost. That would come Wednesday and Thursday morning. Both mornings we could have lows right around that 30-degree mark. So we'll finally see a more widespread frost throughout the area. And then temperatures rebound. As we head into the weekend, we're back well above normal into the 60s. We should be in the low 50s this time of the year across much of the area. So we'll be a good 10 to 15 degrees above that as we head into the upcoming weekend.
Well, as we've talked so much about how the weather impacts our sugar beet harvest, here's a little factoid for you. This will be a little bit interesting. So right now, more than half of our domestically produced sugar comes from root crop of sugar beets, right? And we are the world's top consuming sugar nation in the U.S., in the world. But with some of the volatility that's been happening in the marketplace, we've watched excess imports decline. So we're getting a stockpile in the U.S. Refined sugar prices have been down. And now, interestingly, another impact on our sugar market here in the U.S. is that the weight loss drugs, the GLP-1s, are seeing people consuming less sugar. And it's the same when it comes to the carnivore diet, Make America Great Again. A lot of people are changing their structure. They're consuming less sugar, which I always think everything should be in moderation. I mean, I'm a big sugar fan, but I know we should cut it back just a little bit. And this is going to make a big difference. Nearly 9% of the U.S. population is currently on GLP-1s like Wegovy and Ozempic, and they are spending less money on candies, baked goods. It's also a fact that because chocolate prices are rising, and that impact as well is making people buy less candy. So we're going to have less consumption and use for our domestically grown sugar. So interesting little take that as a side effect, you might say, of some of the diets that are going on out there.
It makes sense.
So it does. It really does. Now, on the other side of it, when it comes to all these heavy new changes in diets, like the carnivore diet, et cetera, people are focusing a lot more on protein. And especially as we age, we should have more protein in our lives. Well, Thanksgiving's coming, so bring on the turkey. Except for the fact that we know about 10% of our domestic turkeys have been negatively impacted because of the bird flu in the last 3 years. About 18.7 million birds. And just since September, we've had 15 detections in the Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin. That's affected just shy of 4 million birds overall, and that was about 600,000 turkeys. So what we're facing right now is that we will probably have less turkeys to buy at Thanksgiving. Potentially we'll have a higher price because it's impacting at the distribution cost. But as retailers, if you are paying attention as a consumer, when you go to your retailer, your local grocery store to buy your turkey, you should still be able to see those on sale prices and be able to buy a reasonably priced protein like turkey that you normally do for Thanksgiving. The last few years, more and more people are not eating turkey for Thanksgiving. They're switching to like prime ribs and so forth. That may not be the case this year based on beef prices. We'll see what that looks like.
Yeah, I was just in the store the other day, Bridgette, and I was well, first off, the shelves were almost empty of beef. I mean, there were very few steaks out there, and the prices were crazy high. I mean, I've seen them a little high before, but A, to have the shelves empty, and B, the prices on there were just through the roof. Is there that much of a shortage, or what's?
I don't think we necessarily have a shortage. Your local grocery store, it depends on what day were you there, right? Did they just get their
Right.
shipment? Were
Yeah.
they about to restock cases? That
Right.
type of thing, right?
Yeah, it was
So that
last
can
night
matter.
actually.
Okay, so on a Sunday night, I could see where maybe that's not as full as it might have been, like,
Okay.
say, this afternoon at 4 o'clock. So that could be part of it. As far as prices are concerned, yeah, we've got really strong beef prices right now. Consumer demand is extremely high, and we're continuing to see that reflected at the grocery store or anywhere else that you might be going to buy your beef. But it's quality too, right? Like if you're going to go buy steak from Alsager Meats in Fargo, do it because they're also producing a really quality product that you want to buy. So it maybe is more of a splurge, but by all means, it's going to be a consumer choice right now. We're not running out of beef anywhere in the U.S.
Right. And I'll always pay a little more to get something better. That's for sure.
Yeah,
It's
I'm all for quality.
well worth it.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, the taste, the whole thing.
Yeah. And I know folks think that if they're going to buy direct from a farmer, that it will be cheap, but we can't necessarily guarantee that. They have input costs that go into it as well. So we don't want to see them lose their margins.
Exactly.
Well, if you're looking for something to do for lunch tomorrow, RDO is working on their Caters for Taters. It helps to raise money for the Red River Valley Children's Advocacy Center. So RDO invites you to the Holiday Inn tomorrow from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. This is going to be a $10 dine-in or takeout option. It's a baked potato bar plus dessert and beverages. So feel free to stop by and load up, support North Dakota potatoes and North Dakota businesses when it comes to RDO as well as charities.
Sounds good. All right. Well, for Bridgette and myself, we want to thank everybody for joining us on this Monday afternoon. Don't go anywhere. Jay Thomas Show. It's coming up next.